Want your brand to be seen and be remembered? Effective campaigns need both. JC Decaux's high-quality billboard sites in premium locations nationwide offer brands powerful and visible stages for emotive, impactful and influential storytelling. Find out how JC Decaux can help your brand be seen and be remembered at www.beseenberemembered.co.nz. Nau mai, hoki mai, kia the fold. E mihi ne ko Duncan Greive tōku ingoa. My guest today in this final JC Decaux partnership episode, Kurt Malcolm, who is the head of trading and platforms at JC Decaux, and Richard Thompson, the co-founder of the media agency D3. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's about out of home as a medium and what's driving its rise. Also about how, and this is an unavoidable negative contrast to, for example, the publishing industry, that the OMA, the sort of centralizing agency that all the big players belong to, has got them kind of working together in a way that's really productive for the whole group, i.e. that they compete in the areas where they should compete and collaborate in areas where that makes more sense. And that, particularly you can see through the recently launched knOOH platform. That's knOOH, which allows both buying and data collection across the industry rather than isolated to particular companies. So we talk through that. We talk through, because Kurt is a true lifer of the industry, about what it was like when he came in, when it was 3% of the market, and then how it's evolved quite radically as it is digitized in recent years. Richard gives a view from the agency side and also of the agency world as it stands right now. It's good to check back in on that. And then we do a little bit of kind of future gazing about the medium, ending on a forlorn plea, which I've voiced a number of times on this podcast regarding out of home, to consider it as not just an advertising platform, to use its possibilities in a content space. Grateful to find out that Kurt is a fellow believer in that cause, which I'm sure will become realized at some point in the medium's lifetime, if not my own. But yeah, really fun conversation. The last part of this JC Decaux partnership, which has been a really fascinating view into out of home. This is Kurt Malcolm and Richard Thompson on the fold. Kurt, Richard, tēnā kōrua, and welcome to the fold.
Thank you.
Cheers, Duncan. Nice to be here.
Great. So Kurt, tell me, you've been in out of home for a big chunk of your career. I can imagine it's not the same industry that you walked into, probably more so than almost any other part of media. Can you first give me a flavour of what it was you found sort of back in the day when you landed in it, how it was perceived, how it sort of rolled out, how business was transacted?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I'm in my 17th year now in outdoor. I've been incredibly lucky to be in one channel and be a specialist for that amount of time. When I hark back to, 2007, when I first kind of got into outdoor, it was kind of not really recognizable to the world we see today with outdoor. So it was a, static business. Our timings were, monthly. And so there's been such a huge, evolution over the last 17 years in terms of what outdoor now is in terms of the channel mix. But back then, I think a lot of outdoor people are, because back then we were only 3% of the actual advertising revenue. So to put in perspective right now, I think roughly we're sitting at about, 17 to 18%. So yeah, it's a huge change. But, the introduction of data, the introduction of the way that we can be very dynamic with our creative, it's just, it's not really the same channel in many ways.
No, not at all. I mean, and even your job title, head of trading and platforms, like I assume that in 2007 that would have seemed like nonsensical. Tell me about what the job is now, because it sort of does speak to the transformative nature of the past decade or so in particular.
Yeah, well, when I started, I had a pretty traditional sales role, and that kind of all changed around 2014. We launched, I think, our first digital billboard around that time. I then started a career change where I spent a whole year basically working on measurement for outdoor, and that was the first iteration of Calibre, which was a measurement tool that we built back then at APN Outdoor. I had already had an interest in data and the way that outdoor was measured. And then, that's kind of knocked on to me looking into investment. So I've built a bunch of automated trading platforms that allow us to look at the way our investment is built and then delivered. And then in more recent time, I've got into programmatic, which is obviously the automated way you can buy impressions in the outdoor without getting too technical. I've kind of had a full gambit of going through from a very classic outdoor position to where we are now, which is much more data-led, automated-led. I've kind of touched on most parts of outdoor in that 17 years. Yeah.
Amazing. Richard, welcome back to the fold. First of all, good
thank
to see you again.
Good to be back.
I wonder if you could start by just giving me a bit of a sense of how things are tracking at D3, how you've weathered what has been, with the exception of outdoor as a medium, let's say that. But certainly the overall space for media, the news has been typically totally tightly tied to the broader economy, not a particularly great story over the past couple of years. How have you gone as an agency through that?
Yeah, I think as an agency we've been pretty fortunate. We've grown pretty well throughout the whole process, but I won't be the first to say that the change has been fundamental in terms of the industry, and the speed of change has been like nothing I've ever seen before. So even since we last sat down, it's been, which was probably 15, 16 months ago, look at our business and the investments we've made, the product and services that have changed. It's huge. We've gone, our data team now is bigger and more influential than ever before. New services for clients in that data space, using more data for the way that we target audiences, the way that we optimize our activity. I look at the SEO space, that again, we've got the SEO team has grown significantly, but gone from what was previously very technical to being very much more around content ready for the AI world. And then obviously the way that we're trading has gone from very much direct IO based, signing pieces of paper to buy media, through to being, I think as a business, we will be 70 to 80% programmatic by the end of this year in terms of everything that we're trading. So yeah, it's been fundamental in terms of the change, but yeah, we're pretty excited actually about the way it's going. We just need the economy to kick a bit more for all of us to see that benefit.
So you're here alongside Kurt to talk about the out-of-home story more broadly. Can you give an agency view of the medium, and if you're talking about over a 15-year period in terms of market share growth, something more than a 500% kind of leap. What do you and I'm sure that D3 is a participant in that. What is driving that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think you probably have to look beyond out of home to see the sort of, I guess, the market context of which has driven the opportunity for the out of home businesses. We have seen clearly a decline in a lot of traditional channels in terms of audience growth. We've seen linear TV in particular, there's audiences shift into broadcast video on demand, but also other video channels. That sort of has limited the ability to capture an audience quickly, so build reach really quickly, and then consequently build frequency against those audiences. So what out of home has done is actually has filled that gap, where as audiences are fragmented in digital channels, out of home provides that opportunity to build mass reach really fast, create brand stature, but then also it's developed so fast in terms of its ability through digital or the digitization of screens, the ability to target, to be more relevant to audiences, be more timely. So not necessarily be on all the time, but be in the right location at the right time with more relevance to the audiences. And then also the world of dynamic creative has meant that actually the creative itself can become more relevant to the time of day, the weather, the audience that we're reaching. So across the board, the game has completely, as Kurt said, the game has completely changed for out of home. And I guess it's had some probably decent wins behind it in terms of the way that other channels have fragmented. So therefore agencies have been investing much more into that out-of-home space to play a role in the media mix that has been left wide open for out-of-home.
So, Kurt, on the we were talking before, and you mentioned something which, again, 20 years ago would have seemed laughable, but now seems almost hard to argue. But that out-of-home has taken the place as the mass reach format of choice that was once previously occupied by and not particularly argued. It wasn't really arguable that broadcast linear television once occupied for advertisers. Do you want to expand on that point and talk about how obviously out of home is a fiercely, and this is a very welcome thing, competitive market, but JC Decaux does these really large formats, which is kind of something that you really kind of build the business around. So and how that kind of feeds into the idea as well.
Yeah, I think for outdoor across the board, it was almost a perfect timing situation where linear TV and some other channels were definitely getting fragmented and probably just going through an evolution, So when you think about, I suppose, total TV, in terms of the platforms, etc., I think things will evolve for them. And then, there's a potential that they will be in growth again in the future. I think that over the last probably 3 to 5 years, as they've gone through those changes, outdoor was just perfectly positioned. The digitization of the industry, I mean, outdoor revenues, I'm pretty sure last I checked year to date, we're at like 80%. So we're getting into every single nook and cranny. The reach it can deliver is exceptional. I think one of the things is that there has been a little bit of saturation, and I think that's something we always need to be cautious of as an industry. From a JC Decaux lens, it's like we want to build, beautifully designed, very impactful assets. So yeah, I think from an agency perspective, to be able to basically, buy broadcast in the way you can through outdoor, with audiences, with creative triggers, like Richard was mentioning with dynamic creative optimization, it just took the oxygen that was sitting there in the room. And again, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the case for the next 10 years, but I do think outdoor is quite well positioned to be a key pillar for any channel mix for any client. And it's funny, me and Richard were speaking before actually about the opportunity for outdoor to actually go after the kind of the SME market, the TikTok, Meta, Google market, just in terms of being a priming of those audiences. So JC Decaux has actually recently launched JC Decaux Direct, which is a self-service platform. So basically, your 1 to 2 to maybe 20, people-sized businesses can jump onto a platform through our website, basically book a digital outdoor campaign and pay off their credit cards. So I think for our vision is kind of like we need to keep expanding, and to get the growth we have been getting, we need to be getting new types of businesses and clients investing in outdoors. So yeah, the future's exciting. It's also a bit scary with everything going on, with AI and that. And I think I've got a healthy respect for, the potential pitfalls of AI, but also I think there's also massive potential for good as well. So it's an interesting time to be in this world with all that going on.
Yeah, I do want to talk later on a bit about do some future gazing. One thing that sort of struck me, one of those kind of, it's not necessarily a sliding doors moment, but certainly you could see the contrast. It was earlier this week as we record it, TVNZ announced this, and it's really important for them, a way of understanding beyond an account level the scale of their audiences, particularly on connected TVs and in living rooms, as a piece of research that was individual to them. And then the very next day, KN, you pronounce it no, I just want that it's KNOOH, came out, which has a sort of a vaguely similar function of trying to get a sense of scale of audience but it's one that is uniform across out of home versus something that is like isolated to an individual company. I want to get your view on this, Richard, because you've got a very important piece of your career that is sort of in this realm. But tell me about that new product or that new research base and what that means for JC Decaux and the industry more broadly.
Oh, look, no for the outdoor industry has been an incredibly important leap for us to make. As I mentioned before, I've worked in measurement for, over 7 years. And one of the key things we'd always get from the Richards of this world and other people in the industry is outdoor can sometimes have too much complexity to plan and buy. And they've been telling us for a very long time that they want to be able to plan multi formats in outdoor and have everything centralized. It's incredibly important for agencies and clients to be able to plan media in an efficient and an effective way. So for us, we actually had our launch party, I think it was last week or maybe something like that. But it was incredible because to get everyone in outdoor onto one platform, it has a world-class methodology that we've built for that with the technical committee it's on that. So for us to be able to actually have a platform where an agency or client can go on, book multi-formats, put in their, DCO triggers, etc., is just a huge leap forward. Because prior outdoor, could be quite tricky to plan and buy. So we're excited to get here finally, to be honest. It's been a really long journey. But I think it's one of those examples where when people come together for the betterment of a channel, and in this instance outdoor, it's going to set us up for a huge growth in the future.
Richard, you've seen this movie before.
A similar version.
Yeah, Capex. I know it's like a weird thing for me to be obsessed with, and I should probably seek professional help. But that was the theory of it. Mm-hmm. I think we've probably talked before in this podcast about why it fell apart, and with every passing year that feels like more of a missed opportunity. But why do you think now that you're on the agency side and observing these different mediums and how they present versus compete, where they unify, where they they're essentially picking their battles on some level, what out of home just really does seem to have a kind of they compete in the right areas and collaborate in the right areas. And I'm sure that behind the scenes that's not always easy, but the public face of it or the market face of it is quite different. From your perspective, how does that from the agency side? How does that help at a sort of a medium level versus some others which maybe aren't quite so collaborative, don't play so nicely?
Yeah, I think it's the framing of the competition probably is the most important thing. I think Out of Home has done a really good job, and it is long overdue as sort of a single measurement platform, a single planning platform to understand the performance of Out of Home. But I think the whole industry is excited about now. I think it's going to give us a whole new momentum to the medium. It's got some great headwinds behind it, Out of Home, at the moment, and I think what the mindset of the industry is one of growth. Of how do we take more share by being more data led, more data driven. I think when you look back at the world of CAPEX, it was probably a slightly different lens that was being looked at in terms of competitors. I felt like the local media were considering each other as competitors rather than these massive global platforms who were eating up all of their market share. So the out-of-home business has done a great job of lining up and saying, okay, we want share into our overall medium. And we will work alongside other media and find out, like Kurt mentioned before, that, total TV will probably grow in the future. The digital platforms continue to see really decent growth. So finding your place in the market and knowing your place in the market is super important. And I think they're doing a really good job of aligning behind a shared goal of I guess, category growth.
I mean, when you look at the category growth, and obviously you speak to clients every day, how much of the out-of-home story is one that you're having to tell and kind of pitch for versus it's, if not top of the tree, if it's sort of deep in the heart of what they're thinking about from the jump now?
Actually, we were talking about this earlier. The back in probably 2007, that sort of era, we would see out-of-home as being a great stature medium for the likes of automotive brands and some of the bigger brands in the marketplace that supported other channels. And then that was very easy to sell in because it was very upper funnel. It was about actually, somebody would see it 20 times in a month going in and out of work, or 40 times in a month, whatever the numbers may have been. And then it was a really good local direct channel for people who wanted to target a specific area. So that's why out-of-home always traditionally did quite well in direct. Where we've seen the development and the selling of out-of-home into the marketplace has been the consistent growth in opportunity, both from a brand perspective, so being more relevant with your messaging, being more relevant with the location, being able to have a much higher quality of screen to put your brand on, but then also meeting at that lower end of the market in terms of lower spend, being much more relevant to times of day and specific locations. And over time, clients have accepted that it needs to be a core part of the mix because it's offering both the opportunity to reach a large audience, build brand stature, but then be highly relevant when they need to, especially around specific locations. So it's not really a sell anymore. It's a how. So how should we best use the media? What is the best mix of large format versus small format, retail versus broadcast?
The JC Decaux Billboard Network delivers quality reach via commanding sites to ensure your campaign is visible and impactful. With superior screen quality and premium locations, JC Decaux can help your campaign be seen and be remembered. Visit www.beseenberemembered.co.nz to learn more. Kurt, thinking about, we've talked a lot about the medium itself, but thinking about with a bit more specificity, I know it's always hard to pick clients at that level because they'll always have competitors who'll also be your clients. But is there a particular campaign or a few campaigns where you think that's just like an apex use of this medium and the current set of possibilities it offers that sort of stands out for you and that you kind of use as a mental marker of if only we can get more people kind of conceiving of it this way?
Yeah, I think that like in that dynamic creative space, it used to almost be like a real case-by-case situation, but what we're seeing now, especially in the last probably 12 months, is there's lots and lots of use cases where people are just using these triggers for weather, time, live data all the time. So it's becoming more ingratiated into just planning outdoor. We had a Auto Trader campaign that ran that basically allowed people that had listings for their cars to then put them up on massive digital billboards, and then there was contextually relevant messaging attached to that. So example being like there was a listing for a 1961 Bambina red, and then it said something along the lines of looking pretty good at 60. So that was a really cool campaign, and I think it was a good use of the kind of textual relevant creative we're talking about and using data, etc. It's funny though, I was saying to Richard, so we've literally known each other going like 2007. So me and Richard know each other a long time. And I said to him, with all the data and creative stuff that we have going on, I still love some of the old school static builds that we used to do. So one off memory was like The Economist, the publication.
Greatest publication on earth.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah. And it was very simple. It was in the UK, and it was a beautiful red billboard for The Economist red, and then it just had a light bulb. And when people walked by, ping, the light bulb came on. And I think the other one that comes to mind was a Volvo one, which was basically a great white shark coming towards a cage, and it just had Volvo branded at the bottom. So I think for me, like with outdoor, like creative is incredibly important. That's one thing I would say. But it doesn't matter if you're doing, data or DCO triggers, or you're just doing a beautiful static build or just image content. But that creative side, I think there's lots of work to do in that space. I think, we need to give guidance as well, because the outcome based on the creative is really important. Yeah.
So Richard, you must will work with a number of different creative agencies, as a media agency, and their job is now increasingly complex, and you've got to have a story which kind of works for different mediums and kind of understands them on their own terms. That's part of the work that you do. Do you feel like, as the kind of that God tier has gone from a linear TVC to out of home, that the creative agencies have been able to kind of move their kind of the central core of what they're making to sort of reflect this, because it's not just outdoor. Let's be honest, it's just a much more kind of complex multimodal media mix. Where do you think they're at on the sort of chicken and egg of that journey?
Yeah, it starts with understanding the role of the channel, what you're asking it to do. So, we've gone from a world where you'd be able to tell a beautiful story in a 60-second TVC through to now possibly getting 3 seconds as you drive past a billboard, or, I don't know how long you'd get on a scroll on a Instagram feed. So very, very short sort of dwell times on your creative, and a really difficult place to start in terms of capturing people's attention. So it's really important that we're clear on the role of the channel. I think a big challenge for creative agencies at the moment is the technology challenge. A lot of people talk technology about what you can do, and just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. We see a lot of people trying to squeeze in sort of very, very interesting technology opportunities within creative, and actually the best creative remains when it's distilled down to its simplest form. That's why some of the creatives that Kurt was talking about in the out-of-home space, they remain very clean. They remain very clinical in terms of the single-minded message they're trying to get across. And that's where, whether it's Instagram or whether it's a billboard, the challenge for creative agencies is to really understand the brief, the role of the channel, really understand the core message that the client needs to get across, and then be able to do that in a 3-second window in a attention-grabbing way. So yeah, the challenge for creative has become significantly larger, and that's where the role of frequency comes in. So we can build messages across multiple touch points rather than have to try and do the single point where we tell a long story about a brand, because that's just not feasible anymore. So yeah, the challenge has grown, but the data is there to tell us where people are engaging, whether people are responding to our messaging, and so therefore we just need to consistently, through frequency, learn and improve as we go.
It's interesting, right? Because the creative agencies were built around a particular medium, and people are creatures of habit, and also that medium contained a huge amount of possibility, and there's a certain amount of kind of natural mourning and resistance, because it's humans all the way down. But there are sort of, whether it's newer agencies or new generations of creatives who don't have that same kind of sentimental attachment to what has gone before, is there, whether it's an agency or a campaign or an individual creative, just, similar questions to the one I asked of Kurt before, something where you sort of go, oh, this feels like native to the current environment as opposed to sort of trying to adapt the previous world onto the current one?
Yeah, that's, when a big growth area of our business is the world of influencers and creators as their own media channel. So it comes back to understanding the format. It comes back to understanding the role of channel. But what we understand as well is that media channels now are not necessarily just spots and dots. So you have to be pushing into new places. And so the great sort of new creative agencies, the new breed of creatives really understand that messaging is no longer purely a format-based thing. It's it's the ability to engage individuals. It's the use of PR. It's very much the use of content, but then it's also understanding all of the media touch points through that process and how they weave together. So there are, you can see the activity that's winning awards now globally. It's very, very different than they were traditionally sort of 5 years ago.
So thinking about the sort of where this is all headed, there's been a vast kind of degree of both data and the possibilities of what can happen to the medium, Kurt, in recent years, but it's not stopping or particularly slowing. One of the things that we were sort of briefed on ahead of time was the rise of driverless cars and whether that's a good or a bad thing for out of home, and ultimately that's not something anyone can kind of figure out just yet. But I just sort of, and like we are starting to get probably some ability to figure that out. There, when I was last in California less than a year ago, I took multiple Waymo trips, and that is just part of the transport system there. So this is not sort of conjecture, it's coming at us. Has there been sort of research on that front, and what is the sort of JC Decaux position on what it is likely to do to your business?
Yeah, I haven't seen any research on Waymo in terms of the impact of being in those types of vehicles, but I think for us, it's like I've seen some forecasts in terms of adoption of, like, let's say level 5 kind of driverless cars, and I think that it's probably going to take a little bit longer than what some people predict.
Certainly been the Elon Musk kind of, it's coming next year, every year since 2013 kind of thing.
That's the funny thing, right? Because I listen to quite a lot of podcasts around AI, and you can definitely go into some pretty intense thought processes around where AI is going. But I think from our perspective, if there was adoption in driverless cars, I think we could definitely see opportunity there, but we would need to probably invest in the right things. Again, it depends on how it translates. If you end up in a society where there's all these level 4 cars, do the cars become offices? Do people if I was driving on the road, I suppose I personally would still want to be able to see outside, etc. So, but look, I think no one can predict how it's going to play out, but I just think it's probably going to be a little bit longer than what some of the predictions are in terms of adoption.
I think it's a really interesting space in terms of data. When the driverless car opportunity is and if you look at the power of the data that people like Google have to at their hands, and then also the technology that they probably have sitting within cars, you then get to a place where your advertising in the out-of-home space and within the car itself can be hugely relevant to the retail environment around you. Coming up to a fast food restaurant, the individual, probably what their loyalty sort of memberships are, that they're 1 kilometer away, and what time of day it is. So
when they last ate.
When they last ate, probably, yeah. So you can then serve up a very, very targeted and relevant message to that individual within the car, and then technically going forward within the out-of-home space as well. So that use of data, location-based, time-based, and then everything that the likes of Google or Meta may know about you, or you as a brand knows about the individual, could make the medium incredibly powerful in those 8-second increments that you can serve it out in.
Hopefully it knows if you're by yourself or with your wife, if you got the sneaky Maccas, right? And next thing it's saying, hey, Kurt, do you want your normal double whopper? Or
No.
Yeah, that could be pretty concerning, Richard.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was, as you were saying that, I'm like, this is very nice for an advertiser. Quite scary for society, but we'll see how all that plays out. Kurt, that innovation pipe, that there's some quite heady stuff that in the brief. There's talk of out of home becoming a living, responsive medium. What does that mean, and what are some of the sort of the features, the products, the elements that you sort of, whether it's kind of planning or whether it's reality, that are coming down the pipe for the medium?
Yeah, I think there's a few elements to that question. I mean, from a planning and buying perspective for outdoor, look, I think we're already in flow here. So it's going to get more automated. I think in terms of looking at omni-channel planning, outdoor will fit perfectly within that with the data it has now. I think that the goal for, anyone, but specifically in outdoor is, are we making it easier for agencies and clients to plan and buy our medium, and is it relevant and effective, right? So that for me is going to be supercharged over the next kind of 2 to 3 years. knOOH is a really good step in that direction to be aligned on that. I think maybe the bigger question potentially is also the role outdoor can play being kind of like community relevant. So I've always been a proponent of wanting to try to have the use of data around community messaging, events, etc. So I'm hopeful that there is a world where the outdoor screens become something over and above real estate for advertising, that there's a potential for time, weather, maybe I don't think it's going to be like moving images for content, but I think it could have financial information in downtown, or it could have maybe there's a feed for the police, potentially for messaging for the community. I truly believe there's an opportunity for outdoor to lean more into that, because then I think the community will see a benefit of outdoor over and above, again, the advertising. So yeah, this is something I preach quite a lot internally, because I think it's important for our future.
Yeah, I it's funny. Like, this is something I've pitched to out of home companies before and have asked about, and I think every podcast on the topic, because given the volume of inventory you have and the fact that it's almost impossible to sell it all, introducing content that is separate from advertising and having that be part of how the public understands it, the reason to pay attention to it, and a kind of part of the sort of social license, I think it would have a quite a transformative impact that might even flow through into research and become viewable there. It just sort of going off topic or out of my lane a bit here, but it seems like out of home as a content medium, rather than just purely an advertising medium, it has so much promise, and I'm glad to meet a fellow traveller down this path.
You should have called me, Duncan. But I just think that there's an opportunity there for them to be beacons of information. I remember being in Dubai, and I was in one of those massive malls, I think it was Dubai Mall, and went up to one of these touch screens, and it had advertising, but then it had mapping, and it showed you other information. And being in New York as well before, and you'll see financial information. So look, I think it's a meeting of those two things. I don't think we want to be like running TVCs on outdoor. So it's not about that. It's just more about really pertinent information that's of value to culturally and from a community standpoint. So I think there's definitely opportunity there.
That's really great to hear.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I think from an advertiser's perspective, it drives greater engagement in the medium, and like you say, there is an overabundance of inventory in the market. So if you can get more people stopping and paying attention to the out of home, then you will get greater engagement with your advertising, and you'll get a greater business outcome for your clients. So I think we're all in favour.
All right, well, that's all settled then.
Done.
Hey, thanks both for coming on the podcast today. Really enjoyed the discussion, and great to have fixed that issue with the content piece as well. We'll just stick around in the studio and just sort of figure out what we're going to put there, and on we go. But no, truly, it was great discussion. Great to see you again, Richard, and really good to have you on board, Kit.
Pleasure to meet you, and thanks
Duncan.
for the chat. It was awesome. Thank you.
Seeing is not enough. With optimized data tools and insights, the JC Decaux Billboard Network helps brands be remembered. Dedicated to closing the loop between impression and action, JC Decaux can help your campaign be seen and be remembered. Visit www.beseenberemembered.co.nz to learn more.